Welcome to the 5 for 2 podcast with me, your host Adele, where we say no to careers where you're trading 5 days of misery for 2 days of fun. A place we discuss all things career, confidence, and money moves. I want to motivate, teach, and empower ambitious women to achieve more, earn more, feel more confident, and enjoy the work they do. It's all about believing you can have everything you want in your career and then going and getting it. So if you're ready, let's get into it. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of 5 for 2 Careers. This week we're speaking about one of my favourite things, you all know, negotiations. I love to negotiate. Now, not because I enjoy the process, but because I enjoy the outcome. If you've been here for a while, you've been listening to the podcast for a few years, you know I don't like going back and forth with anyone over why I should get my money, why I should get the extra annual leave, why I should get anything extra. But I do enjoy the outcome. I always say those 5 minutes of uncomfortableness, that discomfort, could literally add 20k to your salary, so it's worth it. But let's jump into this week's episode. Everything is negotiable when you are the strongest candidate. And that's where I'm going to start the episode. And I want you to take a note and pay attention to the fact that I didn't say the best candidate for the job, the most qualified candidate, the most experienced candidate, because as I've been someone in HR for so many years, I know that those things don't matter. The most qualified person on the day doesn't get the job. The best candidate, even the person on paper who is the best candidate, doesn't necessarily get the job. The most experienced person doesn't get the job. But on the day of the interviews, whoever is the strongest at interviewing will get the job. That's not always the best person for the job, but in that moment, they become the best person for the job. And the reason I'm talking about this is because so many people think negotiation is easier or only possible in your current job because they know you. I believe negotiation is definitely possible in your current job. It is a great way to grow, get the things you want. You can negotiate your title, you can negotiate salary, promotions, all different types of things in your current role. But outside of that, outside of your current role, there are so many things you can negotiate. You can negotiate all the things I just said, even when people don't know you, plus so many more things. But you have to be the strongest candidate. And when it comes to being internal, again, you have to be the strongest candidate. You don't have to be the best. Because I've been on teams where I know I wasn't the best, but I was the most visible. I was the person who spoke about my wins. I was the most likable. I was the person who was able to build relationships. There are so many people that are hiding in the background, doing all the work, head down. They don't get the recognition. They're not able to negotiate the salaries, the annual leave, the extra things that a lot of people are negotiating because nobody really notices you. You just potter away in the background. Same when you go for an interview with a new company. Don't be humble. Interviews are not the place to be humble. Humble will not get you paid. Humble will not get you noticed. Humble will not get you the offer because you have one time to make a first impression. Your first interview is your first impression. You will not book a second one. So if you're going in with the strategy, I'll be humble in the first interview and then I'll step it up in the second. Well, what if you're being humble? All your humility means that you don't even make it to the second. Again, first interviews are not the place to be humble. These people don't know you. This is the place to let them know everything you can do. And remember, it's never bragging when you're just telling the truth. A lot of you are worried about coming off bragging or boastful. If you did it, you did it. Why is it bragging to talk about the things you can and have done or the things you will do? Anyone who feels like that, I just want you to go away and think about that. Why is it bragging when you tell the truth? Is it bragging because it makes other people feel uncomfortable or because it makes them feel mediocre? Because they haven't been able to achieve what you've achieved. When people tell you to dim your light, shine even brighter. Because that's what you're doing. You're dimming your light to make other people feel comfortable. It is not bragging if it's the truth. Anyway, back to negotiating. Everything's negotiable. Every single thing. An old client recently messaged me and said to me that she went for an interview and they couldn't meet her salary expectations all the way. So she negotiated a fully remote role, even though the role wasn't remote. And the reason why I wanted to say that was because, again, everything is negotiable. There's so many people that are like, oh, there's no remote jobs, or like it's harder to get remote jobs, or if you take a job and it's not remote, you can't negotiate. Yes, you can. The people who say you can't are the people who've never tried, or are the people who are not the strongest candidate. Most experienced? Nah. Most qualified? Nah. The strongest candidate is the one who makes the company believe that they'll be able to deliver them the most profit. They'll be able to reduce the most risk. They will be able to bring in new customers. They will be able to deliver marketing campaigns that increase engagement, like social media campaigns. There are so many different ways, not just sales, that you can perform for a company. We've spoken before about currency. What is the currency of your industry or your company? The person that can speak about the currency and how they deliver, teachers, Ofsted, like what are you with Ofsted? How are you contributing to the Ofsted grade? Nurses, how are you reducing wait times? Like there are so many different things in different sectors. We could go all the way back into it, but we're not going to. If you need to remember that, you need to go back to an old episode. However, once you understand how to position yourself as the strongest candidate, you can negotiate almost anything. And listen, if it's not tied down, I'm going to negotiate it. It just is what it is. I've negotiated the mobile phone that I wanted. The whole company were on this. Now, this is going to make me sound really old, but it is what it is. The whole company was on Blackberries. Everyone had a Blackberry. I wanted an iPhone because for what they wanted to do at the time, I needed an iPhone for speed and for efficiency. Blackberries were cute at the time. I loved the Blackberry back in the day, but the buttons, everything was small. Listen, I needed an iPhone. I negotiated myself an iPhone while everyone else had a Blackberry. I was brand new to the company. And guess what? Because I negotiated myself an iPhone and then it worked really well, everyone else got an iPhone eventually. So me being the first to step up and negotiate then filtered down through the company. So no, you don't have to wait and just go by the rules or only negotiate what you're allowed to negotiate, which most people think is salary. You can negotiate anything that makes sense if you are the strongest candidate. And I'm going to keep saying that because a lot of you want to negotiate with no leverage. A lot of you will be like, Adele, okay, right, I'm going to go to this interview and I'm going to negotiate. Then you don't even deliver a strong interview. I want a lot of you who are listening to this right now, if you've never listened to my episode on how to deliver an 80K interview, like are you delivering an 80K interview versus a 30K interview, I'm going to need you to go back and listen because there's a huge difference. A lot of you will be asking for the 80K, the 90K, the high salaries, because that episode doesn't necessarily mean you're asking for 80K. It just means you'll be asking for the top end of a salary, but interviewing at the lowest end of the salary. You have to be the strongest candidate at interview if you want to have enough leverage to be able to negotiate. People that don't know you are not going to be willing to give you the things you want unless they believe they're going to get everything they want in return. I've personally negotiated increased paid annual leave because a company was 3K out on my salary. 3K a year is not a lot out. Let's be real. Most of that would have got eaten up by the tax man. But just because they couldn't give me the 3K I wanted, I was able to ask them for more annual leave, more paid annual leave. They lost more than that 3K, I promise you, by giving me the extra days. But to them, it felt easier because it wasn't money they were giving me up front. It was just days off. But they forget that I was still getting paid for those days off. Do you see? Sometimes you have to be strategic in what you want to negotiate and then be the strongest candidate. Everything is negotiable, whether it's remote work, hybrid work, salary, pension. A lot of people don't realize you can negotiate pension. Small companies will negotiate just as well as big companies. Big companies, you need a much stronger interview, if I'm honest with you. Actually, no. Not stronger, more strategic. You need to really stand out in a big company because they see a lot of people. They've seen a lot of people. Smaller companies, you just need to bring, if you've been in a big company before and you go and interview a small boutique company, bring that big dog energy, bring that big corporate energy, bring that big company energy. That, talking to them about things that they probably don't do at scale or things that they do at a higher level, that's what's going to make you stand out. Once you stand out, then all you need to do is show them what you're going to bring to the table. Numbers. Put down the numbers. Tell them, listen, I can bring X, Y, Z. I can bring this many customers in. In my previous role, I've done X, Y, Z. I have increased social media engagement by 15%. I have filled our legacy training programs that were previously only had like 50% attendance, now have like 90% attendance. Events. My company's been putting on events for years. They were always 80% full. Since I've been on board and I've changed the way we advertise, or I've changed the way we campaign online, they now are 95% full, 100% full. Whatever it is, we're oversubscribed. What do they want? What can you deliver? And then what can you negotiate? Guys, there are so many things you can negotiate. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head what I've negotiated. I've negotiated things like a parking permit. Sounds rubbish, but listen, if you're in London or the surrounding areas and you know how bad parking is, if you wanted to drive, now I wouldn't drive in central London, but I worked just outside London and I could park near my work, but it wasn't free. You needed a permit. I got a permit. So I was able to park. Do you know how much easier that made my life? Jump in the car in the morning if I was running late, especially that time when I had, like, my daughter was in high school and there'd be mornings where she'd forget to wake up and she'd be like, please, can you drop me to school? If you're a parent, you've been there, you know it. Being able to drop her and then go to work in my car instead of having to park, get a train, do all this extra stuff to go to a job that was only literally 20 minutes from my house. But because I was taking the tube, it was taking me like 45. Was so amazing. I know people that won't work for a company if the company doesn't provide lunch. And not all companies provide lunch. But I know people who won't even interview at companies that don't. And if they interview at companies that don't, they try to negotiate it, even if it's negotiating additional money that is for their lunches, or if it's negotiating vouchers so that they can get lunch every day. Listen, everything is up for negotiation. Do not be limited to salary and remote, because there is so much more. Think about the life you're trying to build. The reason I first ever negotiated extra annual leave was because the life I was trying to build was travel. I enjoy traveling like 4 or 5 times a year. I can't do that with like 20 days annual leave. So I started thinking about, how could I negotiate more? The reason I was able to negotiate part-time hours and keep my full-time salary, because I knew I could do the job in less days and I wanted more time off, again, to travel, to spend time with family, to sleep. Don't underestimate how important sleep is, or how good it is that you know that your bills are paid and you can be sleeping midweek while everyone else is at work. Listen, think about what you're trying to build and then think about what you'd want to negotiate. Everything is up for negotiation. I will not go back and forth on that statement. Anyone who doesn't agree, touch grass. Because I will not go back on that statement. Everything is up for negotiation. The most someone can say to you is no. But for every person that says no to you, there's someone out there that will say yes. And for every one of you that's thinking this is not possible, there is someone who has achieved it. That's what I want you to remember. If someone else can achieve it, it's achievable for you. You just got to find the way to achieve it in your world. Every industry is not the same. So the strongest candidate in every industry will be slightly different. The one thing that remains the same is companies care about currency. If you can speak on the currency of that company or of that industry, then you will stand out and you will be the top candidate. This is how sometimes the person who wants the higher salary still gets hired. They don't go with the cheaper option sometimes. Why? Because the higher salaried person made them believe in interview that they were going to bring in so many great things that they went with them. This is why some of you have a crappy boss who's no good at their job, but because they were believed to be the strongest candidate, because they continue to perform in the sense of being visible, being chatty, being friendly, they are perceived as being a good manager, even though you know they're crap, and if you lot weren't there, everything would fall apart like a house of cards. That belief or that perception of other people is what keeps people paid, is what gets people the job. Remember, in corporate, it's not what you are, it's what people believe you are. Perception is the most important thing in the corporate world. If you are perceived to be the strongest candidate, you can negotiate anything. So if you're listening to this episode now, I want you to think about what's one thing you would try and negotiate if you could. I then want you to write out ways you think you might be able to negotiate at your current job. And if not, could you negotiate it somewhere new? Reminder to all my career changers. You might not be able to negotiate it straight away, but 6 months in, you can go back and negotiate. And even my non-career changers. Some of you want to negotiate 30 things at your first interview. Listen, pick a side. There's too many things. Pick one thing. You cannot go in and ask a new company for 30 different things. You need to think strategically. What is the most important? Some of you do negotiate yourself out of jobs because you're just asking for too much. It's like when you go into a relationship and on the first date, so not in a relationship, on your first date with someone new, you tell them, I want to be married in 3 weeks. I want to have some kids and X, Y, Z. And you expect them to just be on board. They don't know you. You've not even ordered your appetizers yet. Calm down. It's the same when you go for your first interview. Yes, you can negotiate. Everything's negotiable. But what do you really want? Negotiate that first. 6 months or a year in, negotiate the other things. 2 years in, negotiate the rest. And then leave if you're ready to leave after 2 years, or keep negotiating. The only company that was able to keep me still, like I worked at loads of companies. Every 2 years, I was changing jobs. Every 18 months, it was like 18 months, 2 years, new job. Until I found the company that kept me for 11 years. How? Because everything was negotiable. Job titles, salaries. My company before that, I'd actually worked for them in total 6 years, but on and off. So I worked with them, left, came back for like a year, left for like 3 years, came back again. And why did I keep coming back? Because everything was negotiable. All the things that they would tell me I couldn't negotiate, when they'd lose me, they would suddenly be ready to negotiate. I would be like, nah, you can wait. I would go and do something else for 2 years. Then I'd be like, I want to go back maybe. Or an offer would come up. They would headhunt me, have a conversation. What I'm saying to you is there will always be people that say no. There will always be companies that say no. But the same way there will always be companies that say no, there will always be companies that say yes. I've been in HR 17 years, HR and recruitment for 17 years, and I've still not got a qualification. I was actually recently thinking about, might be interesting to do a qualification now after all these years. Not because I need to, just because it might be interesting. However, I'm not committed to it yet because you guys know I've just had a baby and the thought of studying is like, absolutely not. Anyway, my point is that there are hundreds of companies that will not hire me because I don't have a qualification. They'll just be like, no, we want someone with a CIPD. And for all those companies that won't hire me, there are hundreds of companies that will. There are companies that have made me a director. There are companies that I consult for and freelance work for. There are companies I've managed in all different job titles, all different levels. Why? Because for every company that will not hire me, there is one that will. There is one that looks at my 17 years and is like, yeah, she knows what she's doing. There's one that I walk into and I interview and I'm the strongest candidate. Again, not the most experienced, not the best, but the strongest, not the most qualified, because you know I'm not even qualified. But because I'm the strongest, I walk the job. I walk the interview. I walk in, I walk out with the offer. Again, that's nothing to do with bragging, because I know a lot of you will be like, oh my gosh, you're bragging. No, not to do with bragging. Understanding what you need to do strategically and getting it done. The same way you know how to do your job every day is how I know how to go in and interview. I treat interviewing like work. What do I need to do to get the offer? Because otherwise, why am I wasting my time? If I'm going on 5 interviews, I want at least 3 or 4 offers, because otherwise, why did I waste my time? Do not annoy me. I don't want to go for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th interview and I keep on getting rejections. So I have learned how to interview so that everything becomes negotiable and I get the offer. If you are the strongest candidate, you have a lot more room to negotiate. I want you guys to be the strongest candidates. How can you do that? Listen to the podcast. Go back and listen to all my episodes. All my episodes are like getting group coaching. If you want something more personalized, reach out to me. If you want to work one-on-one, if you want the specific help with your specific problem, reach out to me. But this is your reminder that everything is up for negotiation when you are the strongest candidate. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that episode and my mini rant. And I will speak to you in the next one. I hope this episode gave you exactly what you needed and motivated you to confidently take steps towards your next career move. If you enjoyed it, screenshot and share it on your socials, tag me on Instagram, and come join my community of amazing women working on leveling up their confidence and career. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.